Pushkin.
Can you hear me?
Oh, I hear you loud and clear. Sound great.
Okay.
Dulcet tones of Gene Simmons. Amazing.
Wow. Emanating from my oral passage.
Are you in LA?
Oh, I'm straight. I'm so sorry. We just met. You already want to know. So, where do you live?
We're off to the best start I could imagine. This is perfect. Uh man, great to meet you.
Thank you.
To
And,
meet
and
you.
thanks for dressing for the event. You look great.
Thank you. Thank you. You look much better, but I would suspect you would always. Um, I saw you. Yeah.
By the way, speaking of potato chips, unfortunately, my apologies, we're going to have to cut it shorter than I'd like to go because I got the stink eye from one of the guys who says I've got a lawyer conference thing. So I'll shut up so you can do the talk.
Okay. Sounds good. I saw you recently talking about Ozzy's death and being quite verklempt about it, as many people are. But I was thinking you guys obviously must have first met on opening for Sabbath, right?
Yeah, we were both trying to make our mark, and we came a little bit later than Sabbath, a year or two afterwards. So they were starting to make some headway, but we were still in the 3,000 seater level, of uh, in the end, a long time ago, before digital, before anything, you had amplifiers, you had a cord that connected to your guitar, and you plugged it into the amplifier. There's no ear monitor, no autocorrect, no nothing. You're not just meat and potatoes. And since neither Sabbath nor Kiss wrote singles, you had to get in the back of the station wagon, go from one city to the other, and take your case to the people. So in a lot of ways, it was a much more honest time. The bands that became big bands because the fans liked what they heard and what they saw.
When you say neither Sabbath nor Kiss wrote singles, what do you mean by that?
Well, if you took a look at the lyric, our first quote single was called Nothing to Lose. I happened to write it. Uh, Before I had a baby, I tried every way. She didn't want to do it, but she did anyway. I thought about the back door and said it was about, you know, the sex from the backside, but radio didn't pick up on it. But that's what it was about. And, Sabbath came on sort of more darker, perhaps. But even we dabbled, me as the demon and God of Thunder and all that. Later on, I did some darker stuff, unholy stuff like that. But until I was made for loving you, I mean, Rock and Roll All Night was a single, but not really a hit. So we tended to write about chasing skirt and enjoying life. We didn't write a song about how could I live without you? All those songs that are directed at chicks. In fact, even Beth, which was a big hit, Beth, I hear you calling, but I can't come home right now because me and the boys are playing all night. In other words, what's more important, me or the band? Actually, bitch, the band.
It brings up a point I was curious about, which is, you know, your I feel like your songwriting is unique in the sense of you mentioned nothing to lose, but if you think about some of your later songs seem were not better, but it's like you knew who you were and what you wanted to say. your writing became almost more direct and clear from my perspective. Could be wrong, and I'm happy to be wrong. Some of the mid-career Kiss songs, or even some of the songs from, like, say, Monster, sound like fully flight. Like, this is, Gene Simmons, the demon of Kiss.
Well,
And I don't know if
I
you feel that.
I will say that all of us, going back to, I mean, the Brits really started writing their own songs, even though Sam Cooke wrote his own songs and Chuck Berry. But predominantly, you have the Brill Building filled with my people, Lieber Stoller and all that, who wrote all the hit songs. You ain't nothing but a hound dog. No, these are not African Americans who wrote. They were Jews who wrote all this, on Broadway, all these sort of blues tinged. You ain't nothing but a hound dog. Lieber Stoller, two New York Jews, wrote that because they loved black music. So artists of the previous time, previous generations, lined up. They came to the studio and they were given the music that somebody else wrote. They had hits written for them specifically by other writers. And the Monkees is probably the preeminent example. You show up in the studio and you have great writers, Boyce and Hart, Neil Diamond, all the best writers would write hit songs for them. But when the Beatles came along, it changed everything. These guys started writing and performing their own songs, playing all the instruments, as opposed to the Temptations, who were one of my favorite bands, didn't play instruments. They just sang and, did stage movements.
Yeah.
They had full bands to back them. No. The Beatles were fully contained. They played their own instruments, wrote their own songs, and in a lot of ways crafted and designed their own. It's like a sculptor who's got a big block, a rock. He's got, a hammer and a chisel, and kind of bangs his way through it and finds the form that he sees in his mind. But I want to say that all of us, Hendrix, Ortega, whoever, and of course they're a much higher life form, are self-taught. Nobody studied music theory. Nobody, to this day, who's popular can read or write music. Nobody's trained in music theory, nothing. We're just, deaf and dumb, just bumbling through a forest of musical notes and trying to find that thing that, appeals to us. Versus real songwriters who knew exactly how to craft a hit song. Max Martin, the more modern, who wrote Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, all that stuff. He sits there, okay, what kind of and they craft, this kind of song. The rest of us are just bumbling our way through it. It's actually quite an enigma of how we get from I didn't know how to play a chord, teaching myself that first chord, and then I'm talking about all of us figuring out how to write songs, because nobody sat down and said, okay, here's how you write a song.
And yet for you, you go from playing that first chord to writing that first crop of songs, Nothing to Lose, then co-writing some stuff, obviously with Paul. Strutter's your song, but then, you bring it to Paul, he adds some stuff, 100,000 Years. But then you move along and it's like, you mentioned Unholy, Domino, Love It Loud, Young and Wasted, Russian Roulette even, or The Devil Is Me. Like, these are songs, like, now getting much later even, absolutely, not only did you figure out songwriting, but it seems as if over the arc of your career, you didn't lose it where some people maybe did. You maintained it, perhaps even got better, would be my estimation. What then have you learned about songwriting? I mean, you intuited it along the way, but you must have learned then.
Songwriting is a trip where you never get there. If you know, I mean, I know Elton well enough and, great songwriters, and they're always, Elton must have written hundreds of songs, 300 maybe more. You're never there. You're always looking for that thing. And maybe that's the magic of that thing. I don't care if you went to the Renaissance, Mozart, Beethoven, like, Rachmaninoff,
Mhm.
Haydn, Chopin, all those guys. They kept writing, searching for that elusive butterfly. Bob Lind. You might wake up some morning. It's before your time.
That is.
Elusive Butterfly, a smash hit, which barely had any rhyme in the verses. You might wake up some morning to the sound of a certain sound blowing in the wind. There's no rhyme.
Yeah.
The words just flowed nicely. So what, Gene? Hey, look, I come from a time when you had more serious songs,
Yeah.
you had ballads, you had blues, you had country, rockabilly. Country artists were having hits right down the middle, and you had novelty songs. And the first rap songs I ever heard was, well, even before Wild Thing, which, don't kid yourself, is spoken word. Goes like this: Wild Thing, you make my heart. There's no melody.
Yeah.
It's just the chords and background. In a lot of ways, it's rap. But before then, we had a song by number one, Napoleon the 14th.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes like this. They're coming to take me away. Ha ha. They're coming to take me away. Ho ho. Hee hee. Ha ha. To the funny farm. And the guy talks for, it's about a guy who's crazy, I guess, and they're coming to take him away. That's it.
Totally
And
bizarre.
on the cover, there's a guy with a Napoleonic hat with his hand in his thing. And that was it. And then there was Dickie Goodman, who would string together pieces of hit songs. And this is before sampling, because it was sampling. They take 8 Miles High by the Birds and, Wild Thing. And so little snippets, and he'd craft a story. Well, there's a flying saucer landing over there. I wonder where it came from. 8 miles high. Well, it can't be, my goodness, it looks like a big fish coming out of the water. Bum, 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 bum. In fact, one of his hits was Mr. Jaws, about a guy going fishing who catches a big thing, and they string together hit songs. Big hits. So what, Gene?
Well, the larger point is that though you did not go to school to study music, you clearly have an incredible ear for music. You have
Wow.
great recall.
Incredible is overused. There's a wonderful movie called Amadeus about Salieri, who was the king's composer, did operas and stuff, and well known historically as a fine melody craftsman during the Renaissance. And he was a childhood friend, somewhat, of Mozart, who was a little bit younger. And he was tortured his entire life by how Mozart would sit down and he would write full pieces, full symphonies and operas and everything, like as if he's just putting it down because it had already been written. The rest of us, poor mortals, you take a piece from here. No, I got to fix this. Then you go back and do it. It's like even Da Vinci would paint something. No, I don't like that. Then he's got to go back and do that. Nope, not Mozart. He would go from right to left, and when he was done, that was something happened. That is a prodigy. That's the word incredible. And Beethoven was actually deaf. He wrote music in his mind. And he wrote the entire symphonic arrangement, every single notation, the bassoons and what every instrument was doing as a counter melody and everything in his mind. He never heard any of the compositions he wrote. That's incredible.
Well, I would almost argue it's miraculous more than incredible.
Okay. These are semantics, but I'm not anti-semantic.
You I'm pleased to hear that. I mean, no, but it's to your point. I mean, that's a clearly a gift above
There's
and
no
beyond what.
explanation for it. It just is. You know, it's like an idiot savant. There was a wonderful movie called Rain Man, and I was at the studio liaising with some guys and developing my own stuff as Rain Man was being developed into a movie, basically about, I don't want to use the term, but an idiot who in life didn't know where he was going, bumbling. He would cross the street and not pay attention to red light, green light and stuff. But the first hint that there's something else going on happened when he was in a restaurant and he went over to reach for a toothpick, and the toothpick holder fell off the table, and all these toothpicks were, on the floor. Tom Cruise, Dustin Hoffman. And when they were walking out of the restaurant, Cruise tells Hoffman's character, "Don't worry about it. Those toothpicks, it's fine. I'm sure you put all of them in." And he said, "Yes, 237." And Cruise went, "What? 237. Yeah, 237. I picked up that when it was 236, and when I put mine in, it became 237 because it was 237. Because what are you talking about?" So he went back in. "How many toothpicks were in there?" He says, "Well, sir, let me count them. 237. And based on a real person, there was a idiot savant, and they asked him, "Could you name the day? What day was July 3rd, 1848, Friday," just without thinking about it. And people go and they check it. Sure enough, it is. There's no explaining what that is. So an idiot savant is a genius in one area and helpless in others. I mean, the mystery of the brain. I don't know how we got off to this tangent, but as you can clearly see, I love the sound of my own voice.
Well, you were demure. Well, in fact, you're being a bit demure, I would say.
That's a big word, like gymnasium. I haven't met another human being in real life who used that word. Not the straight guys, anyway.
Well, we're on Zoom, so not yet. You've still yet to meet someone in real life to use that who uses that word to you. But what I was saying is, you have an incredible recall, and we could argue if it's incredible or just good. Or
I have a good recall. It helps not to use drugs or alcohol or cigarettes, and that way I can put my hand in front of my face, and it doesn't do this. Sure. I'm turning 76 in 3 weeks.
You look incredible. You look incredible.
Yeah, I was saying that to myself. I said, "Self, you're looking good."
But I mean, you're talking about songs like, the Bob Lynn song, that's what, 65, 66. So even
65 is right.
Yeah. So even as a kid, though, you're processed so long before you would have even could have gotten into drugs.
But I had an advantage because I wasn't born in America. So everything was so vivid. I came from Israel. I'm sure you can tell I wasn't born in Sweden. And so I came here with my mother when I was 8. As a matter of fact, I was 8 before I was 9. See what I did there? 8 before I was.
It's Rain Man with the numbers. That's really.
With the numbers. And so when the first music I heard was black music, Chuck Berry, Fats Domino, Little Richard. I was fortunate enough to know Little Richard and spend time with him, and introduced my young son at that point to Richard. I said, we went to see Richard play live, and I took my son because I wanted him to understand, what some of this stuff was. And backstage, Richard goes, "Young man, I invented rock and roll, all this stuff. I'm only 3.5. I don't know what's going on, It was hilarious. Strangely, life is what happens to you while you're busy making your plans. And sadly, I seem to be the only one of note on some level who did the eulogy for Chuck Berry's funeral. I was at the open casket, where the whole family and friends and family were there in an auditorium. And I was in the back, and the Berry family found out I was in the back, and there were nobody, McCartney, Keith Richards, they were not there. I don't know why. Because without Chuck Berry, they wouldn't be the Beatles, Stones, Hendrix, any of these guys.
Yeah.
That was the backbone. And I was just there out of respect, and they came up, would you step up and say a few words about Chuck? As a matter of fact, you can Google and schmoogle it and all that button pushing stuff that tortures me. And I became so overcome by emotion because when I first came here as an 8.5-year-old kid with my mother and hearing that music and not understanding the words, I just, felt the feeling. I didn't know what the words were. And I tried to remember, I didn't know what I was saying. But the feeling of it made me move the way, quote, white music didn't.
Yeah.
Torn between two lovers. That doesn't make you want to, yeah, that feeling that's in the groin, under the belt buckle, that down there. White music just didn't do that. Da 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 da, da 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 da, da 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 da. Oh, yeah, I'm feeling it. No, it doesn't. That's head stuff. Black music was all like down there kind of stuff, which is why you move your hips and your butt and do all that. That's the magic of black music. And again, nobody took music theory. It's all self-taught, and it came from the heart and from the soul. And that's why that music continues to resonate. But American music really was founded on the backs of creative former slaves who could barely play guitar, and somehow these melodies came out of it. I mean, blues, jazz, and then rock and roll and rap, all that came from black music.
Yeah, most certainly. And it's pretty clear. I mean, some of the funkiest Kiss songs are your songs. Almost Human from Love Gun. I mean, that's a monster. As a bass player, as a songwriter, obviously Beatles I know are paramount for you, the Beatles, but there was that other layer. There was something else you were.
I didn't come from a genre because I first picked up a guitar and tried to strum a few chords because I literally have never taken a lesson. I don't know why. The smart thing would have been to sit down with somebody who could play. How do you play a C chord and so on, and what does that mean? But I never did. And that goes all the way down to Eddie Van Halen. Like all the best players taught themselves. And well, I didn't start playing bass. I started strumming those stupid primitive songs. My Uncle is a Raft and Stanley the Parrot, which became Strutter and all that. I was just strumming C, G, D and coming up with my own melodies. And then hearing hit songs, House of the Rising Sun and so, and trying to figure out what those chords were. And of course, getting it wrong. But then I'm going, well, wait a minute. These are my chords now and I can do my own melodies. Here's a song called Spice Islands. I don't know where that came from, and making up melodies. But I didn't have a genre because I grew up on Chuck Berry, Little Richard, black music, and then the Beatles hit, which was like a kick in the nuts. It was like, what is that? She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then you get that harmony, that minor ninth, yeah, that thing with, I never heard that in popular music. To this day, it's not easy to do. It's easy to sing the root and then the, do, re, mi, do, do, that kind of the triad thing, which sounds very nice. It sounds good. But that thing was like on another level when you started to hear those Beatles harmonies. So, I digress. It is interesting that the most successful songwriters of all time, Paul McCartney single-handedly, by the way, is the most successful songwriter of all time. Just yesterday on its own has been covered by over 1,000 different recording artists on their own, which is unheard of. But all the other songs too. I used to manage Liza Minnelli, went to see Sinatra at the boat, and he comes out and introduces, I've got Sam Riddle on the van, I've got to do a song for you. It's one of the finest songs ever written. It's called Something. And then he goes into a Beatles song. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's worth noting again, those guys didn't know how to play when they started to pick up. They were doing what was called skiffle,
Yeah.
and then Buddy Holly, and then the Everly Brothers, and then they self-taught. And the fact that all these amazing writers came from a place called Liverpool. You couldn't come up with a crazier name. Now it's all poetic.
Yeah.
Oh, Liverpool. No, it's liver,
Yeah.
Tishka River. It just makes, when I first heard that, I thought, that's disgusting. A Liverpool? Yeah.
I was thinking the other day, but even Hard Day's Night, that opening chord that's just so strange and it's
It's
amazing, but they never return to it. It's like the idea is so fast and
genius.
furious. It's like, let's do open with this and never come back to it. And you're like,
Genius.
Yeah.
They heard a sound in their head and they did it. Just
Yeah.
genius. As a matter of fact, If I Fell follows opera in a way that rock and roll does not, popular music. If I fell in love with you, would you promise to be true and help me understand? Because I've been in love before and I found that love was more than just holding hands. Then the song takes off, if I give. They never come back to that intro. That's what opera does. Opera has this kind of mood setting melodic intro, and then the material starts and you never come back to it. And the genius of these guys is still unequaled. Here, I'm one of the Beatles in your dreams, Simmons. And you say, so you got a new song? Yeah, got a new song. How's it, what is it called? It's called Help. Okay, how's it go? It goes like this. Help, I need somebody. But there's a pause. It's the song title, which is the first thing you hear. Help, pause. I need somebody. Help. Not just there's a pause. It's not help. I need somebody. No.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have another? That's really good. You got another one? Yeah. It's called, what's it called? Yesterday. How's it go? It goes, yesterday, pause. All my troubles seem so far over. You got another one? Yeah. It's called Michelle. How does it go? Michelle. You got any more? Yeah. Got one called She Loves You. How does it go? Boom, boom, she loves you. Yeah. It's crazy.
It's unbelievable.
If you're right, and they've written hundreds of songs like that. Paul, do you have a song? Yeah. It's called Penny Lane. And Penny Lane, what?
Yeah.
So if you write songs, or you try, the hardest thing to do is to write a really good, simple song that hits the nail on the head right away. We love the Stones, but Satisfaction, as much as we love it, doesn't touch that because you got to get through, and we love the riff. You got to wait about 40 seconds until Satisfaction comes in, the title.
Is there a Stone song to you that approaches the Beatles? Like, if there were one, would it be Satisfaction, or is there another that you think?
I love the Stones, but they don't approach that songwriting. In point of fact, you may like the Stones more, but that's taste.
Yeah.
In fact, the first hit the Stones had was written by Lennon and McCartney. I want to be your lover, baby. I want to be your man. They gave it to the Stones. They didn't write songs at that point. They were doing, blues covers, John Lee Hooker, stuff like that.
Well, the lessons of that stuff, is it unconsciously in your mind as you're writing? Is it top of your mind as you're writing? Even a song, this is a little off the beaten path, but it's always felt a bit Beatlesque to me in a sense. I Confess, from Carnival of Souls, it's just a really, it's an abstract, it's really experimental and abstract in its way. Like, are you thinking like, let's try to do something out the box, or is it just coming?
Oh, it just comes. I wish I had the talent of the Brill Street building, all those guys that wrote hit songs. Even Phil Spector and all these guys. It was a very strange building because all those writers, Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow? Oh, Carole King, who was Carol Klein, they were all of a certain persuasion. They were all members of the tribe. Neil Sedaka, Carol Klein, Neil Diamond. They all Americanized their names. Carole King. No, they were my tribe. Phil Spector, genius. No, him too. And they knew how to write hits. And that just comes with talent. The rest of us are, just bumbling our way through it. And if you come up with something that people like, certainly doesn't have to be a hit. Certainly one of the biggest bands of all time didn't write hit songs, Led Zeppelin. The hits, the astonishing thing about Page, who over the years I'm proud to say has become a friend, are those amazing riffs. This guy who played on Donovan records and every British artist who had hits had Jimmy Page playing guitar, but he himself has come up with more classic riffs than all the other English guitar players put together.
Yeah.
And it's instantly recognized. Be-down, be-down, bump. You know who that is.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Air Supply.
I want to ask you, we want to circle back to something we were talking about at the top of our conversation. Then I just want to quickly ask you about the KISS Cruise, and you can...
Well, this is a fan-run event. This ain't a KISS concert or anything. This is being held in November in Las Vegas. We're just trying to stay in touch with the fans because since Pop House bought KISS, we are... In fact, we had a conference call this morning. There's a movie coming, and the KISS avatars and a cartoon show and an awful lot of stuff. If anything, since Pop House came into the picture, we're really ramping up to big, big stuff. The kind of stuff that hasn't been done respectfully by other bands. Just because, while you're alive, try, reach for the stars. And so the fans, this is a different kind of stuff, not like a tour. So we're not seeing the fans, so you can talk, touch. So this is more of a chance for us to stay in touch with the fans. Open to only a few thousand fans. It's going to be at the Virgin Hotel. No, you don't have to be a virgin to attend. See what I just did there? And it's going to include Q&A and photos and, all that kind of stuff. And we'll get up and we'll, strum and do stuff for shits and giggles. But there's not going to be a KISS show. It's not like we're going to go blow up the Virgin Hotel. I just got the stink eye from the other side of the room. Yeah. Okay. I got it.
Well, I thought I had longer, but I'll tell you what, we wrapped everything we could possibly wrap it. I got made fun of. I got lectured. We just talked some KISS. We talked to KISS Cruise.
No charge.
Beatles. We did it all. So,
no charge.
We can conclude.
Well, I had fun.
Thanks so much.
And I wish you well. And by the way, when did you quit modeling?
I never did. I don't know, man. I never did. Yeah. I don't know.
Well, I have a sneaking suspicion you would be very popular in jail.
Well, let me go try some blue collar crime or white collar crime. Let me see.
Oh, you won't need to do anything. They're going to bring you hot tea in the morning and tuck you in at night. Don't you worry.
That's a real, I'll wear that with a badge of honor everywhere I go. Thank you.
Just don't tell. What happens in jail stays in jail. You don't have to, if you don't tell, it doesn't count.
Man, it's incredible. I hope we get the chance to speak again. It was real honor. I mean, you have you demurred. Here's the word again. You demurred, but you have a really interesting musical mind, and it's appreciated. And hope we get to speak again. Thank you.
I wish you well.
Bye-bye. Thanks for checking out Broken Record on YouTube. If you want to listen to us on the go, be sure to subscribe to Broken Record wherever you listen to podcasts.